Okay, so now we're in the spleen years. Now I have to get serious because these are actually my dark years. It was a whole decade. So when I was 8 years old and after my appendix came out and they realized the spleen was enlarged too, they didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know what was wrong. And I was hospitalized over the next decade many, 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 many times. I had bone marrows done. I've seen every specialist you can imagine. And when I say I was hospitalized, by now we were living in Illinois in the Chicagoland area. And I was in hospitals in Evanston. I was at Evanston Hospital. I was at St. Francis Hospital. I was at Resurrection Hospital. I was at Holy Family Hospital and Lutheran General Hospital. Um, so I call those years my dark years because my spleen eventually got so large and moved, it was no longer protected by my rib cage, so I was pulled out of school. Um, the schools didn't like that. There was a lot going on with that. And then I also had headaches and I was hospitalized for that. And that's when they found my tonsils had pretty much rotted out my throat. Um, I had all four of my wisdom teeth impacted. That was just a few months later. And they all had to be pulled out at once. So it was just nonstop sickness, doctors not being able to explain anything, them not knowing what to do with me because the hospital boards wouldn't approve an elective surgery to have a spleen removed without my doctors finding the root cause. I mean, stuff like that was going on. Um, and then at the same time, my father, when I was 14, during all of that, my father came down with a very severe case of rheumatoid arthritis. So everybody naturally assumed that it had to be autoimmune related because it would kind of make sense. But they could never find anything. My labs never made sense to them. Nothing. So, yeah, the next 10 years, I definitely call my dark years. And there's no other way to say it. So, those were my childhood years. When I was 18, my spleen did come out. And then we go into my adult years. It gets even more interesting. But so that's been my journey as a child in those 50 years of oh, I forgot to add. They knew back then too that I had a heart murmur and mitral valve or what was I gonna say? They knew I had a heart murmur and some other things going on too. Oh, they knew I had a defect in my spine, but back then, the defect in my spine that I had wasn't considered a big deal. Now they know it can be a very big deal. It grew into Bertolotti syndrome. So I also had that going on too. So I had a lot. My childhood was filled with doctors and hospitals and nobody able to explain anything even though they knew it was happening. So that was my weird medical journey as a child.